This is VOA News via remote. I'm Laurel Bowman. Russia said on Saturday it would continue to find buyers for its oil despite what it said was a dangerous attempt by Western governments to introduce a price cap on its oil exports. A coalition of Western countries led by the G7 group of nations agreed on Friday to cap the price of Russian seaborne oil at $60 a barrel as they aim to limit Moscow's revenues and curb its ability to finance its invasion of Ukraine. Meantime, the White House is saying U.S. President Joe Biden at this time has no intentions of holding negotiations with President Vladimir Putin about ending the war in Ukraine, a day after Biden appeared to make a conditional offer to talk to his Russian counterpart. VOA's Jeff Custer has details.
Conference Thursday with visiting French President Emmanuel Macron in Washington. Biden said he was prepared to speak with Mr. Putin if the Russian president were to show he has an interest in finding a way to end the war. At a news briefing Friday, White House National Security spokesman John Kirby explained Biden's comments.
He said if Mr. Putin's ready to end the war in Ukraine, he'd be prepared to speak with him. But he also said clearly that Mr. Putin is showing absolutely no signs of that. So again, our focus is going to be on making sure we're working with allies and partners to not only hold Russia accountable, but also to continue to support Ukraine on the battlefield.
Kirby said Putin has shown absolutely no inclination he is interested in a dialogue of any kind. In fact, Kirby said quite the contrary. Jeff Custer, VOA News, Washington.
A quake of 6.1 magnitude hit Indonesia's West Java area on Saturday, the country's geophysics agency BMKG said, adding that the quake has no tsunami potential. For more news, voanews.com. Check us out. This is VOA News. Chinese authorities have announced a further loosening of COVID-19 restrictions, with some cities no longer requiring testing for public transport. AP correspondent Karen Chamas reports.
The slight relaxation in restrictions comes, however, as daily virus infections reach near record highs. It also follows protests across the country, with many citizens frustrated by rigid restrictions that are now entering their fourth year as the rest of the world has opened up. The cities of Shenzhen and Beijing have said commuters no longer need to provide negative tests to use public transport. But in Beijing, testing is still needed to enter venues like shopping malls, which have gradually reopened. The requirement has led to complaints from some Beijing residents that even though the city has shut many testing stations, most public venues still require COVID-19 tests. I'm Karen Chamas.
A controversial case in the United States on whether a Colorado website designer must do work for same-sex couples. Well, that's going before the U.S. Supreme Court on Monday. AP correspondent Jackie Quinn reports.
Groups on both sides of the issue are already expressing their views. If 63-year-old Lori Smith is allowed not to serve gay couples, liberal groups warn black people, Muslims, Jews, and migrants could also be subject to discrimination. But conservative groups argue if the High Court forces Smith to design wedding websites for same-sex couples against her religious beliefs, other artists, like photographers, writers, and musicians, could be forced to do work that violates their faith. This Colorado case, going before the conservative majority High Court, is the second in 5 years. Colorado baker Jack Phillips won a limited decision when he refused to bake a wedding cake for a same-sex couple. Jackie Quinn, Washington.
Iran's Attorney General says Parliament and the judiciary are reviewing a law which requires women to cover their heads and which triggered more than 2 months of deadly protests. Australia take on Lionel Messi's Argentina in a World Cup showdown, while the United States falls to the Netherlands as the World Cup knockout rounds get underway. A group of Australian MPs will leave Sunday for a 5-day visit to Taiwan, a spokesman for one of the politicians says, risking China's ire, just as Beijing-Canberra relations appeared to be thawing. And the United States unveils the B-21 Raider, a high-tech stealth bomber that can carry nuclear and conventional weapons and is designed to be able to fly without a crew on board. Reporting via remote, I'm Laurel Bowman for VOA News.